your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran-fast vertical stems of professors from Penn watching Eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia. Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
This is what it's all about. We do daily podcasts for like 2.5 weeks during training camp. We got all kinds of time for guests and nonsense.
I will open up a 2-hour block.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends on a Monday afternoon, 1 o'clock, the start of daily pods this week as we prepare for the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. Bo, Zach, and Marissa, who has once again put together a dynamite drop with a brand new song. Marissa, how are you?
I am great. I'm excited for the week. We have like a schedule in place. This feels great. We have some guests lined up. It's going to be a good week. I have a good feeling.
We are looking forward to it. Zach, what's going on with you? What is the time allotment that we have in your calendar for today?
We have Nick Sirianni at 2:45, so that is our hard out. So there's an hour and 40-minute block here if we need it. But excited for the week, NFC Championship game week. Excited for these podcasts that we have. As Marissa said, I like that we have a schedule. I like that we have guests. It's going to be a fun week on Birds with Friends. It's going to be a fun week on The Athletic, and look forward to engaging with the audience throughout that time.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Today's show, we're going to just do some initial thoughts on the matchup, get into some of the specifics of what the Niners bring to the table on both sides of the ball. But watching the game yesterday, both of you guys, how hard did you laugh at the final play of the game by the Dallas Cowboys? And Marissa, does Michael think that Zeke has a future as an offensive lineman?
Michael, we rewinded it like 4 times, and because he just he could not believe like where everybody was lined up, and he hopes that every center got some appreciation after they saw what happened to Zeke there. So yeah, he was fascinated by that last play. So like everybody was, but
and also like just how like hard the receiver got tackled too. Like it was like the play was just demolished on 2 counts. It's really one of the funniest plays I've ever seen.
I would love to know like how it was designed. Yeah. Like what was the goal there? Like I don't know.
Right. Was it supposed to be Zeke going to get the ball? And if that's the case, why does he need to be the one to snap it? Why can't he just why couldn't there be a center and a guard and he could be the guard? Like
right, but he can't touch the ball again, correct?
Well, once someone else catches it,
once someone else catches it. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. At first, Michael thought it was going to be a fake because he thought they were going to line up like that and move. But he's like, once Zeke touches the ball at center, he's got to snap the ball. I didn't know that was the rule.
Okay, that's good. That's a good one to know.
Yeah. I was pretty fascinated by that. I don't know. I would love to know who drew that one up, but it didn't work.
I applaud creativity. I think there's always more than one way to do something, but seeing what the result was on the play, I'm with Marissa. I'd be fascinated to know what the intent was, and I do think with end of game plays you can do some I guess you can do some creative things. You don't necessarily need all the linemen out there, right? There are you can get speed on the field in different ways because, like Bo mentioned, there can be laterals and things of that nature. And I thought perhaps Zeke Elliott would be involved in the play, almost like in basketball where they say, watch out for the inbounder, right? You know, the inbounder, he inbounds the ball and then people lose track of him. But nonetheless, seeing the way it materialized, I have a hard time getting behind that play, and it turned out to be fairly laughable. So
there's such a funny, very like a half second of pause from the defender who he waits 1 second after like half a second as the ball is snapped. He's like, is he going to stay? Can I just run him over? And then he just full speed runs him over. It was really as good as it gets.
I'm curious what D'Amico said during the timeout, right? D'Amico calls the timeout and it did bring to mind the Colts fake punt, right? Against the Patriots that just blew up horribly. So it was similar to that.
Supposed to be snapped, right?
I believe so. Correct.
Yeah, that's what Michael thought. Like when they lined up like that, he didn't think that they were going to snap the ball like that. He thought they were just trying to, do something funny, and then there would be a timeout and they would go back into a normal formation. So
I'm hoping there's a chance this gets me that super point.
I don't know
if Mike McCarthy gets fired. Now, Deniz did rule on the super front that
we gotta touch on this.
The early first downs, Zach hit because touchdowns do count, so that's good to know. So Zach and I are tied, which would mean next week is worth 7 points.
Huge.
Unless Mike McCarthy gets fired before Sunday. Pretty big stuff. Big matchup, just like what's going on with the actual Eagles.
Yes, what's going on with the actual Eagles.
So, Zach, what were your initial thoughts once it turned to be the Niners? I think it's kind of nice that this has been the matchup we were all sort of expecting once the Niners got on their roll, and now it's here. And there's so much more juice to this than last week, because now we're going to find out, like, okay, this is it. The Eagles are they as good as we think they can be, as they think they are? This is a matchup with so many interesting layers on both sides of the ball in terms of style of play, in terms of like stars on the field. It's just I'm very geeked about this matchup.
Yeah, I think you said it well there. First off, the Niners, now they're in the NFC Championship game 3 out of 4 years. I think that speaks to the strength of this roster, the strength of this coaching staff. This is a really talented team, and obviously the record says that as well. But they're a team that plays well in the postseason. We have seen that. Obviously, they're doing it with a rookie quarterback this year, and a thought exercise that I've really tried to apply as I was thinking about this game last night and this morning was, if I did not know anything about Brock Purdy's history, right? If you didn't know someone's draft pedigree, if you didn't know their background, if you simply looked at the way they're playing, would I think about the 49ers differently? Because I do think that even if Brock Purdy was if he was drafted where Trey Lance was drafted, if they made that trade and for Brock Purdy, let's say, do I view the 49ers differently? Was it because I said on this pod, and I've said elsewhere, and I said to you in conversation, that I thought the Cowboys could be a tougher matchup because of the advantage they have at quarterback, number one. And then I also thought the fact that they have played the Eagles, there's less of an element of surprise schematically. They've been to Philly. The environment wouldn't be too big for them, right? It enlarges on this stage, but the Cowboys know what it's like in a big game in Philly. This is all new for the 49ers. But obviously Dak Prescott is not as he's certainly not as consistent and perhaps not as good as I'm giving him credit for, number one. And then Brock Purdy, even if Kyle Shanahan's coaching around him, Kyle Shanahan has experience coaching around his quarterback. He is such a good play caller, and they have such a talented roster, both sides of the ball. The Christian McCaffrey trade changed so much. I've been bullish on McCaffrey ever since the 2017 draft. I thought the Eagles were going to take him if he was on the board. We've all seen what he's done. And then he's given a 49ers team that already has Deebo Samuel as a weapon, already has George Kittle as a weapon. Brandon Ayuk now steps up. Elijah Mitchell, who's one of Bo's draft crushes, playing really well. And then, we can spend an hour talking about that defense and what DeMeco Ryans has done with that defense. Just an outstanding roster, really tough game for the Eagles. And the last thing I'll say in this soliloquy here is that some of the areas where you say, all right, where are the Eagles weak? The 49ers can potentially exploit. If you look at the Eagles defense in particular, if an opposing coach called me up and said, how would you challenge this Eagles defense? I would say passing the ball in the middle of the field, which the 49ers do exceptionally well, okay? And then running the ball, which the 49ers do exceptionally well. And some of the areas, where they might not challenge teams as much, let's say the vertical passing game, let's say, stretching the field on the perimeter, where the Eagles have such good corners. That's not necessarily what Brock Forte and the 49ers forte is. So it's going to be a fascinating game stylistically as well.
fascinating stylistically, for all the reasons you just said, and I think we can dive a little bit deeper into that based on the matchup. But I think you're right about it's hard to like divorce Purdy's being a rookie 7th round pick from how we feel about this team. But if you're just talking about like the road that the Eagles have to the Super Bowl, the path that they have drawn, getting a chance to have 2 home games, one against a mediocre team and one against a very good team, but with a quarterback as limited as Brock Purdy is, as good as he has played. And we saw him, he did not play a great game yesterday against the Cowboys. This is a pretty golden opportunity for the Eagles. This game is still a toss-up. The Eagles are 2.5-point favorites right now. I think it opened at some places at 1.5, opened some at 2, and it has already moved just a little bit in the Eagles' direction. But this is a pretty glaring, exciting opportunity for the Eagles to make the Super Bowl, and that's what they fought for, right? So,
yes, and the home field advantage is critical here too, right? Because as you said, you can't divorce the context here. I imagine, as unflappable as Brock Purdy might be, a rookie quarterback on the road in Philly in the playoffs in any situation is almost a welcoming opportunity, right? If you're going up against Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, someone who has been on that stage so many times, Brock Purdy, and this is no disrespect to Iowa State, Iowa at Kinnick Stadium or something, probably has never played in an atmosphere like what he'll experience on Sunday in Philadelphia.
Well, that's exactly right. And why don't we let's focus on the Niners offense against the Eagles defense in the first half of the show, and then after the break we can flip sides of the ball. But I think if we're going to poke some holes at what Purdy has done, and obviously this is coming from a great place of respect, since you and I invented him in the pre-draft process, and it is thanks to us that he has blossomed. We planted those seeds, and boy has he sprouted.
Well, perhaps if the Eagles listened to us, they would have traded a 7th round pick to draft him, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, he's no Grant Calcaterra. The games that he has, so this 12-game winning streak that the Niners are on, super impressive, and he has been very good. But 2 things that he has not faced much of in this winning streak. One is hostile environments, as you talked about, Zach. His road games have been at Arizona, at Seattle, okay, at Las Vegas, and that's it. He's played 3 road games, and only one of them, I mean, Seattle it's not quite Philadelphia, but that's a little something. And he played well in that game. But I think you're right. That is a bit of a different dynamic that he will face. The other thing is they have not really played good defenses until yesterday. So this 12-game winning streak that they're on, they played 3 defenses who were top half of the league, including Dallas. They played New Orleans, in which case they put up 13 points. They played Washington, who they crushed. Now Washington's defense blew up at the end of the season, but they were 9th in DVOA. They scored 37 points. That's impressive. And then Dallas, they scored what they scored yesterday. So it's going to be different for them. I think my biggest concern in this matchup for the Eagles defense, as you talked about, Zach, this is not a game where you can just rely on Darius Slay and James Bradbury to shut down things on the outside. The passing is going to be over the middle. The Niners threw the ball outside the numbers, the second least often of any team in the league. My biggest concern, if you look at where the Eagles, line up in terms of DVOA against receivers, is probably Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield. The Eagles, it's one of the places, they've got the number 1 pass defense DVOA in the league, but they are number, let me see if I have it here, I think 24th against opposing running backs. And so, like, McCaffrey coming out of the backfield, how are they going to handle that?
And the Eagles linebackers are good, but not, it's not the Niners linebackers. They invest differently. They don't invest heavily in that position. And so you're going to have strain on TJ Edwards and strain on Kaiser White. And if the Eagles are a nickel and your safeties are Reed Blankenship and Marcus Epps, unless Maddox returns, you're going to have strain on those safeties as well. And that's where all of them have played decently to well this year, right? But those aren't the frontline players for the Eagles. And that I agree, that is a concern. And that is, I mean, Christian McCaffrey's a wide receiver for all intents and purposes. He has RB next to him, but when with the way he catches the ball, he is, if he had WR next to him, you would think he's a really high level wide receiver. He's that good of a player.
Just to sort of run it down, Niners offense, 6th overall in DVOA over the course of the season, 3rd in passing, 13th in running. I think that might be a bit of a surprise to people from the outside that they were tilted better in terms of, on a per play basis, their passing performance than their running performance. Eagles defense, 6th overall, 1st in passing, 21st against the run. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see what Jonathan Gannon does from a game planning perspective, how much he's worried about stopping the run versus focusing his resources on stopping the passing game in the middle of the field. This Niners team plays 21 personnel as often as any team in the league. I think they had the 2nd most plays in the league. The Eagles did not see much 21 personnel this season. They saw the 30th amount in the league. I would imagine we're going to see the Eagles stick in like their base 5-2 or go 5-1-5 and still keep 3 corners on the field. But I'm not so sure. I don't know. This is like a challenge that has not been presented to Jonathan Gannon this year, really. It's curious. They have performed well against 12 personnel, the Eagles, over the course of the season, and it's probably a similar type problem. But I don't know. I'm just like the matchups here are fascinating. Do you think that we will get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in the slot again if Avonte Maddox is not back? Because I do have in the back of my mind, Reed Blankenship has played really well. I thought he played really well in that game the other night too. But I have that Christian Watson play in my mind, where he just runs away from him in the open field. And that's like, if you get an opportunity with Deebo Samuel running with the ball in his hands and he's got Reed Blankenship to beat,
I wonder if the Eagles do things that they haven't done before, right?
Yeah.
I mean, almost like a spy, if they use CJ, almost like a spy on McCaffrey or something of that nature. I mean, I don't think it's hyperbole to describe McCaffrey the way I did if you take out a 2020 and 2021, which I know you can't do, but he only played 10 games uncombined in those 2 years. This year, he had 85 catches, 741 yards total. 2019, 116 catches, over 1,000 yards. 2018, 107 catches, 867 yards. 2017, 80 catches, 651 yards. The amount of touches he gets through the air makes him more than just, all right, stop him in the running game, and he's really good in the running game as well. So that's what. But yeah. That's what I'm curious to see. There's something else I would add here too when you look at the efficiency of the offense, and this is a credit to Mike Sando from The Athletic. He had a good piece today, kind of breaking down these games, and this number jumped out to me. Okay, since Purdy took over in Week 13, the 49ers have started 22 drives in opponent territory. Okay, next on that list is Jacksonville with 13. And then Philadelphia with 12. So their defense really plays into it. The 49ers average starting field position is with Purdy, that is their own 36.7 yard line. And that's 3.2 yards better than the next best team and 7.7 yards better than the league average. So Purdy really isn't put in some of these uncomfortable backed up situations, doesn't have to have these really long drives. So it's complementary football in that regard. But I'm curious to see what the Eagles defense does there, or how Nick Sirianni approaches the game in that regard.
Don't you just get the sense, whether it's true or not, that he's going to give him a chance to pick some balls off? There were a couple yesterday.
Oh yeah.
That were dropped. And I feel like now, this is a good offensive line. It's not a great offensive line. I think Hassan Reddick against Mike McGlinchey, your boy, is a potential opportunity. I think they've got some chances in the interior. Trent Williams is really good, but we've seen him been had before. Derek Barnett took him down on Sunday Night Football. We all remember that. What were we going to say?
Michael's a big Trent Williams fan, so
he's
we'll
really good.
Get his breakdown later in the week. Yeah.
I think they can get pressure. They've got the most sacks in the league, right? They should be able to get pressure, but I think they got a chance to affect Purdy.
Yes, although I really think, and I'm happy you pointed out that the Niners are better passing the ball DVOA wise than running the ball. But I really think they're going to lean into their running game, and I think they're going to try to exploit the Eagles that way. And certainly, it's an obvious statement to say the Eagles are dangerous when they're playing with a lead, but I think they're especially dangerous in this game if they're playing with a lead. And then you send your pass rushers after Purdy. If the 49ers are not playing behind in the score and they're not playing behind the sticks and they can run the ball, and then they're so dangerous in the play action. Like it's cliche to say sometimes how Kyle Shanahan's offenses are so good with play action and his disciples or his former assistants bring that. But it is true that when you watch some of the ways that Purdy gets open, and anecdotally, yesterday in that game, the play action is so effective. And anecdotally, if we go back to Miami during training camp and even Cleveland during training camp, and Stefanski, even though he's not from that tree, runs a Shanahan-esque offense, I remember talking to players about how they're not used to seeing that type of play action in these practice situations, and they were letting up some plays out of play action. So this is a different type of offense. I'm really curious to see how that manifests itself on Sunday.
The Eagles' defense against wide receiver types, according to Football Outsiders by DVOA, number 2 in the league against number 1 receivers, number 4 in the league against number 2 receivers. That makes sense given Slay and Bradbury. 22nd in the league against other, 6th against tight ends. Good news against Kittle, and then 24th, as we said before, against running backs. I think this is big. I think Linval Joseph's going to play a bunch of snaps in this game. You saw that Jordan Davis played actually more snaps than him last week, but I think it was tilted by the second half late in the game, and then they just weren't in that many early down situations in the first half because the Giants kept going 3 and out. I don't know. It's just I'm interested. What do you remember, Zach, about the game in Philadelphia in Week 2 last year?
What do I remember? I remember that the Eagles were coming off that Week 1 win, and I remember that they did not play especially well against the 49ers. It was Jimmy G, and I don't recall it being a particularly good Jalen Hurts performance, if memory serves.
One of the longest completions in NFL history that didn't go for a touchdown.
The Quez Watkins one down the right sideline?
Yes.
Remember that one? Yeah. I just want to interject here. We can get back to that game, but I do want to, I don't want to say throw cold water on the idea, but the Eagles really haven't faced some of the top tight ends in the league this year, right? So Kittle's going to present a different challenge. They faced Hawkinson in Week 1, and Hawkinson's a good player.
And it wouldn't pass the eye test really to think that they would be that good against tight ends given what they have at linebacker and safety. Yeah.
But if you just look, Travis Kelce, they didn't face. Mark Andrews, they didn't face. Obviously, Kittle, they haven't faced. They did face Pat Freiermuth. He's had production this year. But otherwise, you look at like the top tight ends in the league, they haven't really seen them this year. Evan Ingram had a lot of production. The Eagles faced him. But it hasn't been, your top tight ends that they've seen. So I am curious to see how they are against Kittle. And I remember in 2020, Kittle had that game against the Eagles during the pandemic season. And I recall him playing real well that game. Last year, I don't think he had a big game here. I'm pulling up the 2020 stats now. Yeah, he had 15 catches for 183 yards and a touchdown. Different defensive scheme. This was 2020 in San Francisco. Jim Schwartz is the coordinator. different linebackers, different scheme, right? So not apples for apples, but Kittle had a huge game against this defense then. So I just want to add that in, but we can't talk about last year's game if you would like it. It was a bad game offensively for the Eagles. And I remember Bosa, I think, had an impressive game because he was his second game back from the torn ACL.
I have in the back of my mind, Nick Sirianni talking about last week that his message to the team was about, we do what we do. Let's not worry about them. Like let's focus on what we do best. And I'm curious how that pairs with this matchup against on both sides of the ball, stuff that they haven't really seen too much of. So is like we do what we do best, sticking with what they do on defense against this offense. I don't know. I'm already like very excited about this game. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that's what's different than if they had faced the Cowboys. This would be a boring podcast right now because we know the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Right? The Eagles have seen the Cowboys. You talk about the rivalry, you talk about some of the individual matchups, but there wouldn't be much mystery in terms of how they play. It's just go out there and may the best team win. There's a lot more intrigue here from both sides, from how the Niners defense will play against the Eagles, right? I mean, the Niners defense has been the best defense in the NFL this year. But even if you look at the teams that they have faced, they haven't really seen a quarterback who can challenge them.
We'll get to that side of the ball. We already talked about that. That's after the break.
Sorry about that. Okay. So I think that this is one where I'm real interested to see what Gannon does. And Sirianni was very outspoken about Jonathan Gannon after the game. Was very outspoken about Jonathan Gannon on the radio this morning. He's going up against.
Did you give him those talking points?
I did not give him those talking points, but I mean, they were stats. Stats don't lie, right? What's that? Men lie, women lie, stats don't. Isn't that the expression?
Stats lie all the time.
Or except when you're using them, right?
Yes,
I can use them to lie. Zach, was I too hard on you the other night? There was a lot of comments about how I was very harsh. I don't even remember most of it.
We're gonna have a peaceful week of podcasts this week.
Yeah, but I do have a mea culpa from that show, and this was pointed out to me by a mea culpa by Emily. I should have just said, "Thanks for listening. We love you." Like I don't know why I had to do that protracted thing. That was ridiculous. So yeah, I'm truly grateful for.
You've got your scruples. You've got your.
No.
I think the chat. Everyone knows you love them, Zach.
Thank
I
you.
would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Emily was chatting you for that.
Yeah. She's like, why didn't you just say I love you? And I'm like, all right, I love you.
Did she think I was too hard on you?
We don't have to get into any of that. No, she thought, she thought she enjoys the podcast. She enjoys the chemistry. And look, I hope people don't misinterpret any of it. This is all good fun, right? This is,
of course,
yes.
So it's not.
We all really love each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fun. It wouldn't be entertaining if we just kissed each other's ass the whole time. So, or kissed each other's butt.
That's for the OnlyFans that we've got working on.
Oh, jeez. We already have Cameo.
Yeah. So that means Emily does think that I was too hard on you. I got to take that note.
No. Let's focus on Eagles-Niners. Nah, she doesn't think that. She's cool.
She's cool. I know she's cool. All right. Are you particularly worried about Debo?
I mean, you should be worried about Debo whenever you play him. He's awesome. And I think he's another draft crush of yours, right? You loved him at the Senior Bowl.
I loved him at the Senior Bowl, but I did back off a little bit because he was a senior without a ton of production. So
he didn't fit the bucket.
I can't take a full victory lap there.
But your eye test proved it, right? You loved him at the Senior Bowl, I recall.
I did, but I'm trying to be fair and take my victory laps where they're deserved. But
I mean, just one of the most fun players to watch, and especially in the open field. And if you have a criticism, and I don't know if this criticism is merited or if it's part of like that narrative that goes back to the way the Eagles conducted training camp, but that they need to be a better tackling team, right? You have to tackle you have to tackle Deebo Samuel because he is a man when he's on the field.
Well, and this is like Sirianni has talked about taking umbrage to the notion that they weren't a physical team before, and he wants them to take pride in being a physical team. This is certainly gonna test that.
Yeah,
it's a very physical team that they play.
Absolutely. I mean, and your corners need to tackle, your safeties need to tackle. This isn't just about preventing the big play. Their big play is not necessarily coming 40 yards over your head, right? Their big play is coming 10 yards to Deebo Samuel and let him run the next 30. So that's what I'm curious to see.
Now, one thing that the Eagles do have in their advantage in this game is the cowardly turtling way in which Kyle Shanahan coaches and manages a game. Always opting for field goals on fourth down, not going for it on fourth down, trying to bleed clock. I think that in a game where the margins might be razor thin, that is something that could, in the end, tilt the game to the Eagles' favor.
I have a hard time being too critical of Kyle Shanahan. Like I said, third NFC Championship game in 4 years.
How about win a big game, Kyle?
Well, you have to win big games to get there, right? I mean, they were 10-7 last year and made the conference championship. They've won 2 playoff games this year. In 2019, they had the lead late in the Super Bowl. They had to get there. So I give Kyle Shanahan a ton of credit.
Well, yeah, but you can divorce Kyle Shanahan, the coach and game
Sure.
planner, from Kyle Shanahan, the game manager.
Sure, he's more conservative than I would be as a coach, but I'm saying he wins an awful lot of games and an awful lot of big games that to me to say the Eagles have this advantage because they're going up against Kyle Shanahan. A matter of fact, I think that from a coaching perspective, Kyle Shanahan puts you at an advantage.
Well, yeah, but I think what my point is that come like the guts of the game, the Eagles, I think, have a game management advantage.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I heard the same criticism about Andy Reid that you love him Monday to Saturday, but you don't want him coaching you on Sunday. And I'm like, well, his team's winning an awfully lot. He's in an awfully lot of big games. He must be doing something right.
Yeah, but he's doing some things wrong. I think that's a fine thing to say.
Absolutely. Fair enough.
Okay. What do you think of George Kittle's just whole vibe? Does it bother you a little bit?
No, because he's authentic.
See, that's what I disagree with. I don't think that he's authentic. Yeah,
I think he is. I think
he's
that's
playing
like
it
who
up.
he is. No, I think that's who he is. That's the vibe I get.
Yeah, I've read stories about, I've read enough stories about him coming out of Iowa, and I think that's who he is. So now, certainly, there's playing for, the camera at certain times.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of playing for the camera.
But I think it's
marketing,
authentic with the way he does it, right? I mean, like, not to compare him to Jason Kelce, but I think he knows he has a big personality that people enjoy, and he plays into it. Jason Kelce does the same thing, right?
I think it's a little bit of a lesser degree, but I see your point.
Or Lane Johnson, right? I mean, Lane Johnson's he's cutting wrestling promos too, right? It's Lane's personality. It's George Kittle's personality. So I don't have an issue with it because I think it is authentic.
Okay. I'm not so sure I agree, but I don't want to disagree too much. I don't want people complaining that I'm being too hard on you.
No, trust me.
I disagree. Yeah.
I'm one of 6 kids. You will never be as hard on me as my brothers are. I promise you that.
Who's the hardest on you?
Probably Matt.
Okay.
What about your sisters? Are they hard on you?
Oh, your sisters? My sister's very hard on me, but she's the best, my sister. So she makes me better. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, why do you think it is, if we can just sort of dive into the psychology?
We really don't have to.
Why do we think that Matt is the hardest on you?
We're closest in age.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're closest in age. So we're like,
he's the one who has to run into Dainez at the coffee shop. It's
no, we're 2 years and 4 days apart. So it's the closest in age actually of all the 6.
That's pretty impressive that there's 6 and the closest is 2 years and 4.
Yeah,
that's a good long
really
stretch.
need to. Yeah, we don't need to get deep into this stuff though. Let's focus on the Eagles-Niners.
All right, why don't we take our break?
Actually, but you should answer Marissa's question. Are your sisters hard on you?
No, they're not very hard on me.
Okay. How about your brother? How would you take it if someone's hard on you? I feel like I feel like you would, and I don't say this in a bad way. I feel like you'd be offended by it.
No, I wouldn't be offended if someone. I'm happy to. Are you saying that I don't take criticism well?
I'm saying you're more of a pushback on criticism person, right? You're not.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to.
I don't think you're like an
accept
internal.
it if I disagree with the.
So I'm more of an
premise.
internalizer. I'm like, yeah, you're right. How can I improve that? Right? You're more like, no, you're wrong. I think.
If I think they're wrong,
Okay.
but I'm happy to take. I think criticism when it's deserved is fine. I don't know that I've ever done anything wrong, but
Eagles, 49ers, personality test. We get everything on this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. Tell Matt to tell me what I need to do better.
You're an outstanding host. You're doing well. Let's get to break and Niners on the other the offense defense.
Let's take a little break on the other side. We'll talk about the Eagles offense against DeMeco Ryans, the dashing DeMeco Ryans, and his number 1 ranked defense.
Now, our next partner is a pretty cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, and a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll all agree that most of us are not huge fans of having to take a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning. But with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all those extra vitamin bottles and finally get some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution that actually tastes pretty good. You'll really enjoy getting your daily vitamins. So what is this stuff? With 1 delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day the right way. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into flu and cold season. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/birds. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/birds to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/BWF. and get on your way to being your best self. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up the way you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you. Because when you feel empowered, you are more prepared to take on everything life throws at you. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's not only convenient, but it's also flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/BWF to get 10% off your first month. That's BETTERHELP.com/BWF.
All right. Back on Birds with Friends, Bo, Zach, and Marissa. Moving our attention now to the other side of the ball, which is somehow even more loaded. You know, on the other on what we just talked about, you had number 6 against number 6. Here you've got the number 1 defense, number 1 in DVOA, number 1 in EPA per play, 5th in defensive DVOA against the pass, 2nd against the run, against the number 3 offense in the league by DVOA, 9th passing, number 1 running. And as you mentioned, Zach, I'll toss it to you now so you can say what you were going to say before. One thing that this Niners defense has not really faced is a quarterback who can run like Jalen Hurts.
Yes, just as you said, they haven't really faced a quarterback who can run like Jalen Hurts. I mean, if you look at the most mobile quarterbacks that they faced. I mean, they did face Kyler earlier in the year, and other than that, that was the Mexico City. Actually, I don't know if Kyler played that game. I don't think he did in Mexico City. No, he did not. So I take that back. But they faced, they faced Marcus Mariota, they faced Russell Wilson, and then they faced Justin Fields in week 1 in a really
monsoon,
weird game.
And
exactly.
they hadn't changed their offense yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So in an atypical game. So yeah, I'm curious to see how they face this defense here, or how they face this offense, how they approach it defensively. You did that tease before the break, by the way. And I've said this story on the pod before, but Marissa can appreciate this, and I think our audience can appreciate this. We all know Bo's sense of humor, okay? And we all know that we sometimes go with jokes, and we don't know if our audience understands it. So we had a new editor before the game last year against the Eagles-Niners, and we have this weekly meeting, Bo and me, with our editor, and Bo makes a story. I was going through different storylines for that game, and I mentioned how D'Amico Ryans is his former Eagle, and then Bo's like, "You should write a story about how handsome he is." And our editor just doesn't know what to do with this information. He's looking at me like, "Is that a story you want to write, Zach?" I do you remember this, Bo?
I remember it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I only remember it because you've brought it up. I probably wouldn't remember it otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah. But you said that before the break, and it made me think of it. D'Amico Ryans is a really good defensive coordinator.
Do you deny that he's strikingly handsome?
I really don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. I know
Marissa,
him.
What do you think?
I think he's a very good-looking guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
And a good coach.
And a
Great
really
coach.
good person. Just like an awesome guy. My first year on the beat was D'Amico's first year, 2012. And, I didn't really know anyone in the locker room. And he was just such a pleasure to deal with then. And those 3 years thereafter. And I remember sitting down with him when he was coming back from the injury, talking extensively about that. But, yeah, D'Amico Ryans, who Jeffrey Lurie said when he retired, was the classiest player to ever play for the Eagles during his time here.
Which is, of course, a low bar because he didn't play for the Giants, right? So it's like the least classy person who's ever played for the Giants is still classier than the classiest Eagle.
Well, just imagine if he was part of the Giants organization,
right.
He'd be even classier. Yes.
What were we going to say, Marissa?
No, I was just going to say I think he's going to be a head coach at the end of the
I saw
season.
that he turned down 2 interviews yesterday because he wanted to prepare for the game.
Right, but we haven't had a single head coach hire, so I feel like
right.
people are waiting for whether it's
I think people are waiting for
whether D'Amico Ryans
and Peyton too. I think it's like Peyton makes his decision and then the dominoes fall after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a good chance that like the Super Bowl is including at least 2 potential head coaches.
But I understand Houston really likes Jonathan Gannon, and I think Jonathan Gannon, from like a personality and leadership perspective, will make a good head coach. I said this last year on this show. I don't think there's ever been more of a slam dunk hire than Houston hiring D'Amico Ryans. It's such like he's deserving of it. It's the easiest. He might be the most popular player in Texans history, either D'Amico or Andre Johnson, and well JJ Watt as well. But D'Amico has D'Amico has such a strong reputation in Houston. I don't get why that wouldn't be a direction the Texans would go.
Or, I mean, I'm not so sure. I mean, I think D'Amico can pick his job. I'm not sure that's the one that he should pick.
Amazing. Although you think that's the top job available.
I think it's the number 2 job available, probably.
Okay.
But they're all bad jobs.
Yeah.
I wonder who currently holds the title of handsomest NFL head coach in NFL history. Because I mean, D'Amico's coming for that title.
I feel like we've done this before.
I'm trying to think, like in all time. I mean, maybe you're a Lombardi guy. Landry had the hat. if you're talking accessories,
I figured you'd be like
Rex
an Arthur
Ryan
Smith guy.
has a case. Who?
Arthur Smith.
Oh, please.
Isn't that your doppelganger?
Zach's bringing it.
This is good, Zach, because you know that's the one thing that does get under my skin. It's good. Good for you. We got a long week ahead of us. I hate that so much.
I didn't come up with that. That was a reader-generated submission.
If you're in the chat, if you're in the live chat, let us know who you think is the handsomest head coach of all time. And well, maybe we can announce a winner by the end of the week. All right, some things here about the Niners defense. Let's look at how they stack up in terms of the against different receiver types in the passing defense. They were 4th in the league against number 1 wide receivers, 18th in the league against number 2s, 30th against others, 13th against tight ends, and number 1 against running backs. They have also been a little bit vulnerable on deep passes, 24th in the league against deep passes. And so I think there's going to be one shot in this game where they have a shot play call for Quez Watkins and he's open deep.
Just like last year. Okay.
Yeah, there's gonna be one, and I think it's gonna make a big difference in the game whether Jalen Hurts hits that pass.
That's
one thing
good
to look
prediction. Personnel wise, their corners are probably the weakest part of their defense. I mean, their front is really good. First round picks down the front, almost entirely. I mean, they have Nick Bosa, Armstead, Kinlaw. So you have 3 first rounders there. Nick Bosa leads the league in sacks this year. Has been, other than the year he was hurt, just a terrorizing force.
His numbers are so much better than everybody in the league. Like,
yeah,
the classic Kapadia pass rush index. Quarterback hits per pass rush snap. It's not even close. I think I have it. I can pull it up if you give me a minute in the power rankings. But that is where this game can get wrecked, right? Bosa against, he does a little bit on both sides, but I think you're going to see him more against Lane Johnson, and like, whew, well, that's what a test that's going to be for Lane, given what he's playing through.
Yeah, you're going to see his health in that game. He was on IR when the Eagles played against the Niners in 2020. When the Eagles played against the Niners last year, Bosa had 2 sacks. He had a tackle for a loss. He was outstanding in that game, 2 quarterback hits. So he's a difference maker. And so is Armstead in the middle of that defense. And then you get to the second level where Fred Warner might be the best linebacker in football. We've talked about it. You're not going to spend that first round pick, that second round pick on a linebacker. What you're trying to do is you're trying to hit on a Fred Warner type. You need to have the type of scouting and developing that the 49ers did there. Even Drake Greenlaw was a really good pick for them in the 5th round, 2019. And then you look at I said their corners are not their strength, but the safety, am I pronouncing it correctly?
Talanoa Hufanga.
Yep, Hufanga from USC, playing at a really high level. He's drawn comparisons to Troy Polamalu probably because of the hair, right? But he is.
They actually have a history with each other as well.
Okay, USC guys, and he's all over the place. So unlike the Eagles,
Travis Ward is pretty good too.
Okay, yep.
But yeah,
that was a good signing.
Lenore can be had.
Mm-hmm. And they lost Jason Verrett to injury earlier this year. That was a big injury to them. They have, I believe, Jimmy Ward's playing the slot for them. But they're not – their front 7 might be the best front 7 in the NFL, and they're certainly playing like it.
Nick Bosa on 480 regular season pass rush snaps hit the quarterback on 10.1% of those. The next best pass rusher who had at least 200 pass rush snaps was Trey Hendrickson, who was all the way down at 7.1%.
Wow.
It's a huge drop off. It's like Bosa has been so good. I feel like the Eagles' only chance is to get him distracted with like talk of like cat litter in schools or climate change or something like that.
But elsewhere on their defense, yeah, I mean, we mentioned Fred Warner, but like that game yesterday, he was awesome. The play he had downfield with CeeDee Lamb, that was a great read by. I mean, that was a nice play design by Kellen Moore. It was the right read by Dak Prescott. You have CeeDee Lamb in the middle of the field, and Fred Warner just ran him down, made a good play in coverage. Again, he's like the prototype that teams are looking for.
Some thoughts in the chat on handsome head coaches. Some love for Doug Peterson. Some love for Mike Tomlin. I think Tomlin's up there. Saleh. I'm not all the way in on Saleh, but I could see it. Bill Cowher, I see. See some Dick Vermeil, Urban Meyer, Al Groh. I know Zach's in on Al Groh. That might be his answer.
Al Groh's a nice man.
Yeah, sure. I think that I have one overarching thought here and two specific thoughts. My overarching thought is that as good as the 49ers defense is, and they are the best in the league, I will always believe that like great offense is going to win over great defense. I think the Eagles are going to be able to score points here. How are they going to do that? I think there are two easy paths, not easy paths, but two obvious paths. One is, Niners have the second best run defense in the league. The Eagles have run the ball on the best defenses in the league before. I don't think that it's crazy to think that they can have a productive game running the ball. Even last week, we didn't really see them leaning all the way into the Jalen Hurts running the ball part of the offense. I think he had 8 runs, but it was not like the foundational part of the running game. They did so much split zone and handing the ball off, and the Giants were just so bad. But I also think this is the game where the investment in having arguably the best duo of wide receivers in the league is supposed to matter. This is the game where they are going to rely on A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to make big plays, make contested catches. Like this is what it's all about. And I think that's part of the reason we gotta follow up and see what happened with A.J. Brown after the game, why he was upset, get an answer on that. But I think this is what you went out and got them for is this game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I'm glad you mentioned the point about big plays because, right, you look at probably the worst defensive performance that the Niners had this year. It was against the Chiefs, and no shame there. The Chiefs are awesome. Mahomes was humming that game, but in that game, what did the Chiefs do? They had big plays. Valdez-Scantling had 57 yards downfield. Smith-Schuster had 45 yards. Kelsey had 27 yards. McKinnon had 34 yards. I mean, McCole Hardman had 18 yards in terms of the longest completion that they had. So you hit it on the head. The Eagles talk about explosive plays. This is not just a talking point. It's something they measure. It's something they believe. It's something that they really try to generate. I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with Norv Turner, who is Shane Steichen's play calling influence. And
read that story on The Athletic. Thank
you. Yeah. And Norv, one thing Norv said in terms of part of what he's discussed with Shane is knowing when to take shots and being aggressive early in games, taking shots. And the Eagles have done that. The pass to Devontae Smith on the opening drive last week was a huge part of setting the tempo for that game. So I agree with your assessment, and I think that's going to be critical is that the Eagles, like Jalen Hurts throwing the ball downfield, A.J. Brown's a downfield threat, Devontae Smith's a downfield threat, Quez Watkins is a downfield threat. We haven't seen it as much this year, but Dallas Goedert can threaten teams down the seam. If you have to have the protection, and it's incumbent upon the offensive line, but that is something that I would definitely watch is the Eagles love big plays. They thrive on big plays, and they're going to go after big plays in this game.
I think that's right. How do you feel about Jalen Hurts? Just your temperature check on how Jalen Hurts is relative to his full power.
I think he's there. I think that there's no limitations against him. I thought he made the passes he needed to make. I thought he was fine running the ball. And again, he'll be at this point 6 weeks past the injury. So yeah, I don't think the injury, I imagine it's painful. But I don't think the injury limited him. Did you think so?
No, I thought he played a very good game. Better than like even his stat line indicated. He was so good early, and that was really only when it mattered. So, yeah, I don't know. This is exciting stuff, Zach.
But this is, if you're in the NFC Championship game or you're in the AFC Championship game, if you're one of the final four teams, you should be playing against the heavyweight, right? You should be playing against one of the top defenses in the NFL. Or, I mean, the Eagles are fortunate they're not seeing one of the top quarterbacks, but they're facing one of the top defense. They're facing the top defense. They're facing a 13-win team that is hotter than any team in the NFL this year in terms of the win streak that they're on, and is experienced.
Like D'Amico level hot.
Is experienced, is battle tested. They've won big games on the road in the postseason. I mean, this is a team that's gone into New Orleans and won playoff games. This is a team that's gone into that's gone into Seattle. They've gone into Dallas and won playoff games. I mean, they've knocked off some good teams in the postseason, and they're gonna challenge you. The Eagles are gonna have to earn this one. They're not gonna win showing off. They're gonna have to earn this one.
A little bit surprising. This is only the second playoff matchup between these two teams in franchise histories. Kind of a fresh little.
Yeah, so I was thinking about that too, because I saw that nugget, and it's kind of their times when they've been up and the times when they've been down have
not coincided really.
Yeah, like the Niners were a great team in the 80s and the early 90s, and that wasn't when the Eagles were humming. The Eagles were a great team in the 2000s. That's not when the Niners were humming. So, yeah, it was mildly surprising until I looked at it.
Who do you think Chip is rooting for?
That's a good question. Dom, probably. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, D'Amico, he likes that Niners year that he was there had to be one of the oddest years for a head coach, right? I mean, everything was there was so much attention on the 49ers because of Colin Kaepernick that year. It was this I don't want to say an arranged marriage with Trent Baalke, but it was like, they had just fired Tom Sula and now he comes in. It was an atypical year.
Who do you think Terrell Owens is rooting for?
The Eagles.
Okay.
Yeah, McNabb's not playing anymore. Yeah.
Who do you think Bob Lang is rooting for?
The Eagles, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think Daryl Tapp is rooting for?
Is he still on the Niners staff?
I think so.
Yeah, so I imagine the Niners, yes.
Okay. Who do you think Michael Clay is rooting for?
The Eagles, yes.
Okay. Who am I forgetting?
For some crossover?
Yeah.
I would need to really look at that. Well, T.Y. McGill is on the Niners.
T.Y. McGill, that's a good one. He's been playing well.
Yeah, he's on.
I keep seeing like things across my timeline every couple of days. Like, look at this T.Y. McGill play. That Niners defensive line is where, like, journeyman defensive linemen go to pop.
Yeah, and
who do you think Jordan Matthews is rooting for?
The Niners? Is he still part of the organization? Is he on IR there officially?
Oh yeah, didn't he get canceled for something?
I don't know. I always like Jordan. I gotta tell you that. Maybe that.
Jordan. Oh no, I'm sorry. Not Jordan Matthews. Jeff Garcia. I'm seeing Jeff Garcia in the chat, and Jeff Garcia is in my mind. Jeff Garcia is the one who got canceled.
So Corey Unland, I believe is on that Niners
Corey
staff.
Unland
right?
is
Defensive
on the
backs coach. Yep. Won a Super Bowl in Philly.
David Akers. Who do you think he's rooting for?
Eagles, I imagine.
Who do you think Ricky Waters is rooting for?
The Eagles. I
Okay.
think Harrisburg guy.
Okay. Who do you think Marissa is rooting for?
That's a good question. I mean, she's right here. You can ask her.
I'm obviously rooting for the Eagles on behalf of our loyal or sickos. You know, I want them to be happy. I want, pod success. So,
But do you want to go to the Super Bowl and deal with the hassle of an extra week of daily pods, or would you rather have that time off?
no, let's do it. I'm gonna have 6 months off.
Yeah,
Our
that'll
show's
be
gonna fall apart. Our show's gonna fall apart without you, Marissa.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be just an utter disaster.
Not sure who's gonna do the 3 a.m. pods, but yeah, we'll make it work. Someone will make it work.
It's gonna be the third hour. I'm gonna be texting you. Can you please call Bo right now? And you're gonna have a baby screaming in the background. Yeah.
That's what I just call Bo and put the baby screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Good stuff today. A little dipping our beaks into this matchup. We'll be back tomorrow with a guest, continuing to talk about what we've heard. We'll hear from Nick Sirianni this afternoon and coordinators tomorrow before the podcast. So maybe that'll give us something to sprinkle in. Maybe we'll play a game of some sort, and maybe we'll come up with some more attractive head coaches. So
First Monday without football tonight in a while.
that's right.
Right? We're used to that, so you have to find different ways to fill your time tonight.
I could, use some sleep maybe.
Yeah. Get some sleep. Big week ahead.
Probably watch some
Basketball
tennis.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, how's basketball going?
I'm like TCU out there, man. I'm struggling right now. I gotta pick it up, but hopefully tonight. I'm letting down my team right now, so I need to improve.
Oh, your basketball.
Yeah, Zach's on the basketball team.
Yeah, you haven't shared that, Zach.
Have you had any
I talked about it with Bo.
interactions on not on the level of the tennis guy that I have, but any sort of chippiness on the court at all?
Only with myself, right? Like I get really frustrated. I couldn't score at all the last game and was getting frustrated myself. And then I apologized to the other guys on the team.
They're like, you're taking it a little too seriously.
Yeah,
Let me out a little bit.
It's a Monday Night Basketball League. Chill, Zach. Yes. I come home, I'm pissed. Emily's like, you can't play in this league if it pisses you off so much.
Right, that's literally the point.
Yes.
Like to go out and get some exercise and not let it affect the rest of your life.
Yeah. I let it affect me. But
you turn that into a great week of writing. So maybe you needed that little fire.
That's the hope. That's the hope.
So then should we hope and root that you have another frustrating night tonight? And that it fuels you?
No, it's not good. No, I'm gonna have a good week of writing regardless. I'm confident in that.
There we go. I like that, Zach.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. I don't mean to use these corny expressions, right? But Chip Kelly used to say, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to your training. And I tend to think that this time of year, it's not all of a sudden like you start, you have to pick it up. It's like if you have been doing the work all year, then you know what to write this year. You know what the storylines are. You know what the angles are. So yeah, you almost sink to your training, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
What position you play on this team?
Center. No, that's a joke. Yeah, I mean guard, but again, I just want to be a net positive, not a net negative, right? So I'll get the ball to the guys who can score. I'll play tough defense. I'll try not to turn the ball over, and try to be a net positive to the team.
Are you draining any threes?
Not enough.
Okay,
Yeah,
but you're willing to pull the trigger from the outside.
Well, I'm certainly not very good on the inside. So if I'm going to provide, it has to be on the outside. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that'll do
We
it.
can have an update tomorrow.
Yeah, can't wait. Yeah, Daily Pods gives us an opportunity to get an update. Maybe the Stone Cold Newsman tomorrow can update us on the outcome of.
Yes.
That'll be the end of the show.
Game.
That'll be the end of the show. There you go.
All right.
All right. Tomorrow with the guest. You want to tell who the guest is?
Dan McQuaid from Defector is going to join us. We got to work on the timing. So before we nail that down, but that's the plan. And then we got more guests the rest of the week. So exciting stuff.
Yeah.
So for Zach and Marissa and D'Amico, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow and the rest of the week. And as always, we love you. So does Zach.